Hello everyone. I've got another pen review here for you. And today we're visiting this pen here, which is the Noodler's Neponset. Now I know this is a pen that's been out for quite some time as far as when it was released, and there's a lot of reviews out there on it. I do know a lot of the reviews are from a while back, so I thought it'd be interesting to revisit this pen. So I picked this pen up just a couple weeks ago on actually gouletpens.com. So I got it on their website. And when I was looking to purchase the pen, this has been a pen that's been on my radar for quite some time. And I know there's a lot of mixed reviews out there. There's some people that love the pen, some people that really strongly dislike the pen, and some people that are, of course, in between. But I know, and it's generally all based off of the pen's intended purpose and how it performs or lack thereof in some cases. So like I said, it's been on my radar. I've wanted to get one. It definitely, from a Noodler's pen, has a little bit more of a premium price point, being that it's generally sold for around $75. And when I was researching and looking to purchase one, I could get it on eBay for about that same price. Goulet had it at the exact same price as you can purchase on eBay, as well as other retailers. And I always enjoy my shopping experience with Goulet, so I went with them. So I paid $75 minus shipping, which was around $5, and then a little bit for sales tax. I think the total was around $83 to $84. And of course, shipping, it got to my home very quickly. Got a nice handwritten note like you always do from Goulet, and everything was very nice from a customer service perspective. So I enjoyed that. Now this pen, as you can tell, is a very nice turquoise / blue swirls. I think it's a very attractive looking acrylic. It really stood out to me when I was comparing it to some of the other acrylics or ebonite materials that I saw on the other Neponsets. And from what I can tell, those are primarily the two main materials. You generally have these acrylic materials that you see here, and then you have some ebonite versions if you're really big into ebonite. Now, this, of course, is an Indian made pen. Definitely kind of gives that vibe when you look at it. It looks like a lot of Indian pens out there. However, it is a very large Indian pen. When you compare this to like a Gamma Jumbo, or if you put it next to, like, say, a Jinhao 159, which is not a small pen, it definitely holds its own. I do like that aspect of it. So that was really the first thing when I first got the pen, besides, of course, the material, was really just the overall size of the pen. It's nice and long. It definitely has a nice circumference. It's girthy, so it's a very nice size pen. Now the material covers the entire pen. There's, of course, we have our rounded edges on both the barrel as well as the cap finial. So just a really nice standard cigar shaped pen. The clip is, functional, very springy. It's kind of that quintessential clip. It's not, I would say, extremely durable. It definitely can probably lose its deformity if you really put a lot of pressure on it. However, the good thing about these clips is if that happens, you can generally bend them back and they'll be fine from that point. You can obviously tell how the cap is faceted with the clip. This is just screwed on there. And then we have our cap band here, which says Noodler's Inc. And we don't have anything on the back. So nice. I like the actual placement of the cap band. I think if you're going to have one like that on this type of pen, it's a nice area to put it. Obviously, you can tell our cap is very wide, very large, and then we have a pretty nice step down from the cap to the barrel, and then the barrel just tapers down a little bit as well. So overall, I think it's a nice design. Looks very good. Now, as far as taking off the cap, a little over one full turn, basically one full turn, which is nice. I have some other Indian made pens that literally take forever to pull the cap off. And then, so our section's the same material as the rest of the pen, which again is nice. There's a very, very slight step down, but pretty smooth transition here. Nice wide section, which I like. not extremely elongated, but nice wide. I don't feel like I have to hold the pen right on the threads. However, if you do, to me, they're not sharp. They're machined well, so no real issues there. Section tapers down just ever so slightly, and then of course has that flare out at the very end, which is nice for finger placement. It kind of lets you know where you're at. This is a pen, because of it being oversized, in my opinion, you don't have to write with it posted. However, you can post the pen, but when you do that, it just becomes enormous. Now, the material it's made out of, as well as the clip being a very thin metal material, it's not, to me, balance-wise, I don't feel like it's bad at all. So if you're in a position where you have to post the pen and you can't put your cap down per se, or you're worried you're gonna lose it, you can definitely write with this pen pretty comfortably posted, even though it just is very long. Now, one of the things that makes this pen unique as well is, of course, the nib. So this is Noodler's music nib. So of course you'll notice that we have 3 tines there. This is actually my first music nib. I don't own a music nib on any of my other pens. The idea behind this nib is that when you put pressure on it, like most flex nibs, you're going to get line variation. But because of those 3 tines, you have your 2 slits on either side. When you put pressure, it spreads out and kind of widens that ability to provide line variation. Now, you do have an ebonite feed with additional wide channels to help keep up, hopefully, on the flow with the ink. And really, essentially, that's kind of how the nib works, basically. Now, as far as the filling mechanism goes, we see it right here. It is a draw filler, or I'm sorry, a push/pull filler mechanism. So some people love these, some people don't. You'll see the same type of filling mechanism like on some of your FPR pens, which I can show you one here in a moment. Now, it does have a pretty nice size holding capacity as far as ink. As you can tell, I have inked up this pen before and written with it. I cleaned it out today. I guess I had a little bit of ink left over, probably in the feed. I didn't pull all this out. I just literally rinsed it in the sink to get some of that ink out because I wanted to change out the ink. Now, I do know that people have removed this and eyedroppered the pen. I've also seen in some reviews that this part here, so meaning our converter, is really torqued down or glued in place, so it's very difficult to remove. I have not made the attempt to remove the converter. Now, you can see, get it to focus, you can see that there's threads there. So in my opinion, we should be able to remove this. It does look like we have an O-ring down here at the bottom, which probably does really make that very tight. I'm sure that there's probably some silicone grease. It does look like either we've got an excess amount of silicone grease here or possibly a little bit of water seepage in there. But it hasn't impacted the performance of the pen at all. I'm actually going to wipe off this nib a little bit. I'm going to put another blue ink in here. I had Noodler's blue in here, and I'll kind of discuss that with you guys once we do the writing sample of kind of the writing experiences that I was having with it. But in essence, that's really basically the pen. I think, again, I really, really like the acrylic so far. That part I definitely enjoy. And real quick, we will do some sizing comparisons with the pen against some other pens, 2 of them being Indian-made pens, just to give you an idea. And then we will ink up the pen and do some writing samples, and then I'll tell you guys what I really like about it and what I don't like about it. All right, guys, so we are back, and we have 4 pens here. So just to kind of give you an idea as far as sizing comparisons go, so of course we have our Noodler's Neponset down here on the bottom. Right above this we have a Renga handmade acrylic fountain pen here. A Renga, definitely, you notice as far as length, is somewhat close to the Neponset. However, in overall girth, the Neponset definitely just is a much larger pen. However, FPR Himalayan, which is in its own right a normal size pen, you would say, but definitely just to give you again an idea of overall sizing comparison. And then we have our Jinhao 159, which girth wise is definitely Wider than the Neponset, however, the Neponset is going to be a little bit longer just by a hair. The 159 definitely has all three of these pins beat in overall weight, with it being a full metal body construction. Let's look at the pins now in their unposted or uncapped form and kind of look at the nibs and the sections and the overall length from that perspective. All right, so now we see all four pins uncapped and unposted, and really all four of them kind of tell a little bit of a different story. Now you'll notice there is somewhat of a common theme, however, with the three Indian made pins here, that the sections, while they may be different sizes as far as length and overall girth, the idea or overall structure of the section is predominantly the same. You have it where it tapers down just slightly, and they all three have flare outs at the end. So just a common theme there, as well as these two specifically, while there's differences in size, the overall structure from the threading to the step down to the section itself is again about the same. Now the Jinhao is its own animal. Again, it's a full metal body construction. Now one of the main primary differences that you'll notice between these three pins is of course our nib. So we've got a Schmidt number 5 nib right here on our Renga pin, and then we have FPR's standard flex number 5.5 nib on the FPR nib. Now of course, looking at them, in my opinion, I think if you're someone that really likes the size of the nib, the Noodler's definitely wins out here. I think the Noodler's is also a very unique nib, with it being that music nib, and just the overall look of it, I think it's a really neat looking nib. Now we do have a number 6 size Yovo Goulet pins nib up here. Again, another nice nib. Get a little bit more of a close-up on these sections as well as the nibs, just to kind of give you an idea. And again, I think that Noodler's nib, it's a really interesting nib. Very cool music nib. Let's see the pins posted real quick, again, just for perspective, to kind of see how they look in their posted forms. All right, so here now we have all four pins posted, and of course we can barely get the Noodlers in the screen. So again, it's very elongated, but as I stated before, because of the acrylic being so lightweight, the clip design, the metal being thin and lightweight, really to me doesn't throw off the balance tremendously. The nicest posting pin in this grouping here is of course the Himalayan. It posts fairly deeply, and it's just a nice comfortable fit. It makes the pin larger from that perspective, so it's in my opinion, the nicest posting pin out of this group. The 159 gets very back heavy, of course. And then I would say in second place would actually probably go to our Renga, where it's much more elongated when it posts. Again, it's very light acrylic material. The clip design is not very heavy. It just fits nice, and I generally hold it up a little bit higher, and it feels nice in the hand. But again, the Noodler's Neponset, no knock on it necessarily. It's just very long when you post it. It's a pen, in my opinion, that you can write with unposted. Even if you have large hands, it should be very comfortable. Very nice size section. I will say I really do like this section when I've written with it so far. It feels nice. It's that perfect length as well as girth. Like the circumference of the section just feels nice in the hand. I don't get a lot of hand fatigue. And so that part I really do enjoy. All right, so now we've got some sizing comparisons and things. So up next, guys, I'm actually going to fill up the pin on camera, so that way you guys can kind of see that part. And then after that, I will post up some dimensions as well as weight, so you guys get an idea of what this pin weighs as well. And then of course, we'll do writing sample at the end. All right, guys, so we are back, and so we'll do the actual filling of the pen now. So the ink that I'm going to use for this is actually going to be this. So this is Waterman. This is the Inspired Blue ink, and it's kind of a nice in-between ink, and to me it matches a little bit the pen. I had Noodler's Blue in here, which is a very nice lubricated ink, which was great, but it was almost too much. This nib really lays down ink, especially just in normal writing conditions, and it just, I mean, it took forever to dry. So I thought maybe trying this ink here just to see how it performs. So let me remove my cap. Bear in mind, I'm doing this over the camera, so this is always interesting. Here we go here. So again, like normal, we're going to go ahead and just put our nib and completely submerge it inside of the pin. And then we're going to simply pull up. I don't think I got it all the way in there. There we go. Try one more fill. See if we can get a little bit more in there. Nice and slow. There we go. That's a pretty nice fill right there. So there you have it. Very simple, easy to use. May take a couple times, you know, to get it to fill. If you go nice and slow, it should work well for you though. Again, I feel like this, you should be able to remove this converter. So if you wanted to eyedropper this pen, this would be a pin, honestly. If you buy this pin, that eyedropping it would not be a bad idea because of the amount of ink that this nib can lay out. So, and you guys can kind of see that in the writing sample. So there it is, filling it, not too bad. So I'm going to post next, guys, the dimensions and everything. And then I'm going to post just a little bit of history behind the Neponset that is actually posted on Goulet's website. That's where I'm getting it from. I thought it was really interesting. Instead of me explaining it over the video, I'll post it for you guys to read. If you want to read it, you can pause the video and read it. I think it's really interesting. Or if nothing else, just go to Goulet's website. You can read it there. See you guys in a moment. Okay guys, we are back, and paper that I'm going to use for this writing sample is actually just regular parchment paper, no lines of course, as you can tell. So a little bit different paper, different feel to it as far as feedback as well. And before I do that, I did want to show you guys a little bit of a writing sample. So if I can get it in the screen, of course. So not perfect because I'm writing in the middle of the page and my tripod is kind of a pain in the butt. But this will kind of give you an idea of some of it. So this was when I was using the Noodler's blue. Now, it wasn't perfect necessarily, but you can see how this pen just really just laid down a lot of ink. Very dark color because it put out so much ink. Here you can see I wrote my name there in kind of a flex. Now, the funny thing is if you flip it over, you see literally I let it dry overnight, and even after I close my Clairefontaine notebook, it's still smudged everywhere. So it definitely takes a long time. It puts out tons of ink. I did want to show you guys that because I do play around with these type of pens a lot, and that was just one of the many writing samples that I had available right now. So let's go ahead and jump in. So again, we have here the Noodlers, and you can already tell, I mean, this thing is just spitting out ink. Neponset. And this of course is a music nib. So this is no pressure whatsoever, and you can already see the ink flow right now. So just a normal writing sample. There you go. So definitely a lot of ink there. All right, so here is just a regular downstroke. You know, a little bit wider line variations. Here's some, you know, cross strokes. So decent there. So let's look at just putting just a tiny bit of line variation, and there we see it. Now we're running dry. So this is one of the issues that I have with this pen, and I think it's similar to what a lot of people have had, is the flexing is somewhat inconsistent. Now this is the third ink I've tried in this pen. The Noodler's blue worked better. Again, I think it's a much more lubricated or wet ink. I did have the So now I have the Waterman inspired blue, and then I also had the Konpeki in this pen, and even the Konpeki, which is generally pretty good, was somewhat inconsistent. Now you'll notice it really spits out ink the first couple of line strokes or line variations, and then it really starts to slow down. The nib, now of course we ran completely dry. Nothing. And I'm not going to edit this out because I want you guys to see the pen in its full performance. So I'm going to I'm going to push out ink onto the paper. I'm going to flood that feed. I got some on my finger. Because this is probably, like, I think the frustrating thing, and I know some people have had this issue. Now I've taken the nib out, I've cleaned the feed off, I've made sure that there's no oils or anything on the nib. I've cleaned it off, I've soaked it in an ammonia-based solution, and I still have opportunities or issues with it. And even after I did that, still nothing. Now we have some line. Now let's go and actually push the nib, and I'll even go a little bit slow. There's some decent line variation. And then we see the feed is now starting to run dry. So I haven't had great experiences with this pen. I haven't found myself reaching to grab it to write with it, even when I had the Noodler's blue in it. Now, generally, if I just write with this pen, just normal writing, just writing with it, no flexing, no pushing the nib, the writing experience is pretty solid. The minute I go, however, to flex the pen, I get a lot of inconsistencies with the flex experience. As I stated before, I pulled the nib, the feed, I've reset it 2 or 3 times. I've cleaned it off, I've rinsed it under water, I've changed out the inks, tried different inks, I've soaked it in that ammonia solution. I got that from actually Stephen Brown and something that he did with a pen that he was having issues with similar to this, and just to try and see if it would make any difference, and really it didn't make anything. So it just, unfortunately, the pen does not perform its intended way. And now we see it kind of, again, running dry just on normal writing. So I bet you if I put the Noodler's blue back in it, it will probably write better. It still railroads quite a bit. But the one good thing is it will write under normal writing conditions, no flexing, it will write well. It's disappointing because I will say my Noodler's Conrad, after I tinkered with it and really messed with it, that pen is a nice writer. It flexes well. This pen doesn't have that creepy Noodler smell that some people don't mind, some people don't like. It actually smells fine. So, but at the end of the day, you get a pen to write with, and I can't recommend this pen. Maybe I just got one of the ones that unfortunately doesn't perform well, but you buy a pen for that intended purpose to flex, and this one does not do that, not consistently anyways. So that pretty much takes it for this review. Again, I hate giving this pen a poor review, honestly, because I love the material, I love the looks of the pen, I love the feel of it. The nib, when it's just under normal conditions, it writes well. So if you want an everyday writer, it can do that. But in my opinion, it's marketed for an intended purpose. You buy it for that intended purpose, and for about maybe $10, $15 more, you can get a Pilot pen with a soft, flexible nib, or soft nib that's somewhat flexible, and in my opinion, have a much better writing experience. So that, I think, is what's disappointing. So I know the gentleman that owns Noodler does a lot for the fountain pen community, and again, I hate giving a bad review on this pen, but it was not a great experience. Guys, hope you enjoyed the review. Comment down below if you have one of these pens and what your experience has been with it. If you guys have any other suggestions on some things I can do with the nib to make the writing experience better, definitely let me know. I'm open for any suggestions, and I will tell you if any of those suggestions work, I will do a follow-up video on the nib and its writing performance. I'm going to continue to tinker around with it. If I get it to write more consistently and better, I will be more than happy to do a follow-up review on it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, bye-bye.